Welcome back to the deep dive. So, if you're like most people, you are just constantly bombarded with messages promising you these immediate results.
Oh, constantly. It's everywhere you look.
You see the ads, right? Lose 30 pounds in a week or achieve financial freedom working just 2 hours a day.
The quick fix.
Yeah.
That promise of the overnight success, the instant miracle.
And it is almost universally a myth.
Yeah.
I mean, it's perpetuated by modern marketing, and it's really just designed to separate you from your cash.
It's the ultimate instant gratification trap. And, it's so unsatisfying because it fundamentally misunderstands how real lasting success is actually built.
Yeah.
We've all been sort of conditioned to believe that transformation should be fast, like, microwaving popcorn. But that's just not how human achievement works.
Absolutely not. And that's really why today's deep dive is so essential. We are going to cut through all that noise and focus on a simple, timeless, and just devastatingly effective principle. Our sources today are synthesized from the profound insights of author Darren Hardy, who spent decades studying the habits of the world's most successful people.
And what he found, what he distilled, it wasn't some complex secret system. It was a simple formula he calls the compound effect.
So our mission today is really to reject that fantasy of the shortcut and provide you with a clear, actionable blueprint, an operator's manual, if you will, for building real, sustained success.
And it's all built on small, consistent decisions.
Exactly.
And that core formula, it's worth saying right up front, because it's basically the whole show. It's
Yeah.
small, smart choices plus consistency plus time equals radical transformation.
It's not sexy, though.
No, not at all. In the beginning, it's slow, it's repetitive, and honestly, it can be pretty boring. It demands patience and discipline, which is the exact opposite of what our culture tells us to expect.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Let's just ditch that microwave mentality right now. We really need to get our heads around why patience isn't just a virtue in this process. It's a prerequisite for any real achievement.
Right. The foundational idea here is the anti-shortcut philosophy. We're just conditioned to look for the hack, the magic bullet.
Always.
But the truth is usually old, not new. Success is rarely some single brilliant discovery. It's almost always the result of relentless, even monotonous application of the fundamentals.
And that brings us to what we could call the tortoise mindset. We focus so much on the hares, the naturally gifted, the flash-in-the-pan talents.
Yeah, the overnight successes that were actually 10 years in the making.
Exactly. And we forget the whole point of that story. Success ultimately belongs not to the smartest or the most talented, but to the ones who just build positive habits and stick with them every single day, even when they feel totally insignificant.
Consistency is the critical ingredient. And, this is why most people fail. They quit during the boring phase. They start strong, but when that effort doesn't immediately translate into visible results, they just assume the process is flawed.
And Hardy, the author, he learned the power of this rigor really early on, thanks to a particularly intense upbringing.
Oh, yeah. His father was a tough, no excuses football coach.
And he instilled this non-negotiable definition of discipline from day one. He didn't grow up with, soft music in the morning. His alarm clock was literally the sound of metal weights hitting concrete in the garage at dawn.
The philosophy was just no pain, no gain, zero excuses.
That structure, it was intense, but it taught the sheer necessity of work ethic over any kind of natural talent. Hardy recalls this really intense system of chores and academic rigor.
Right, and if he was sick, his father's rule, which came straight from the football field, was that you were only allowed to stay home if you were, visibly throwing up, actively bleeding, or, in his words, showing bone.
Wow, that's a demanding philosophy of grit.
Incredibly so.
That sounds incredibly intense, though. Almost bordering on unhealthy pressure by today's standards. For a listener who wants to adopt that rigor, but also, maintain balance and mental health, how do we internalize that focus without just burning out?
That's a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
And look, Hardy's childhood was extreme, but the lesson isn't about physical exhaustion. It's about establishing unbreakable standards for yourself.
Okay.
And it's the realization that work ethic will always beat talent when talent doesn't feel like working.
Yeah.
The takeaway isn't to push until you're showing bone.
Right.
It's to design a system where small, non-negotiable efforts happen every single day, no matter how you feel. So if you commit to 15 minutes of reading, you don't miss it. So you can't do 15, do 5. But the streak must be maintained. That's the core discipline.
Right. It's about teaching your mind and your body that your commitment is absolute. So if you weren't naturally talented at free throws, The answer wasn't to quit. It was to shoot 1,000 free throws a day until mastery was basically forced.
Exactly. And through this relentless structure, Hardy had a schedule by age 12 that looked like a corporate executive's calendar.
And you see how it paid off. The results just compounded. He was making six figures by 18, owned a house by 20, was a millionaire by 24.
Yeah. And built a massive media company before he was 40. But none of those achievements were from a single lucky deal. They were the compounded sum of those tiny daily disciplines adding up over years and years.
And here is where it gets really psychologically difficult. This is why most people quit. We call it the invisible start. You decide you're going to improve your life. You start jogging every morning, and after 8 days, you look in the mirror, and you look exactly the same.
Or you start practicing piano, and 6 months in, you still sound pretty terrible.
Exactly. Or you start saving money, and 3 years later, that investment account just seems pitifully small.
The results are quiet. They're silent. They're invisible. And this is the great quitting point, because our brains are wired for a linear return. We expect 8 days of effort to equal, 8 units of visible progress.
But the compound effect is exponential. During those first months or even years, the graph looks completely flat.
It's like planting a seed. You water it every single day, but for weeks, the soil looks exactly the same. You start to doubt if the seed was even any good.
But beneath the surface, profound, radical transformation is already happening. The roots are growing deeper. They're anchoring the plant for all the future growth that's about to explode.
You just have to maintain faith and persistence during that invisible period, knowing that the inflection point, the point of visible change, is coming.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this power of invisible growth, we have to look at the classic example, the magic penny.
Right. So you're offered 2 choices today. Option 1, you can take $3 million in cash right now.
Sounds pretty good.
Or option 2, you can take a single penny that will double in value every single day for 31 days.
And that instant gratification instinct, which, let's be honest, governs most of our choices, it just screams, take the $3 million.
Of course it does. Why wait a whole month for a penny? That's that linear thinking trap.
Okay, so let's track the penny's progress, because this is where it gets really interesting.
So by day 10, that penny is worth $5.12.
Right, and your friend with the $3 million is already enjoying their new house.
Exactly. Day 20, so now we're 2/3 of the way through the month, only 11 days left, and your penny has just crossed $5,000.
Still not even close.
Not even in the same ballpark. And doubt is creeping in. Statistically, this is where most people would cash out, believing the whole process failed.
But then, after all those weeks of what feels like negligible growth, the scale finally tips. The exponential growth phase kicks in hard.
It really does. In those final days, the power of consistency finally reveals itself. So on day 29, the penny is worth $2.7 million. You're almost there.
And day 30.
It doubles to $5.3 million. You've blown past the cash option. And on a final day, day 31, that tiny, consistently doubling penny explodes to $10,737,418.
It's just an unbelievable number. And it only happens because of that long, disciplined, boring streak that came before the explosion. It proves that those small efforts aren't just building blocks, they are exponential leverage.
And this pattern, it translates perfectly into real life. Hardy illustrates this with a great story about 3 friends, Larry, Scott, and Brad.
Right. They're all just ordinary guys, middle-aged, making about 50 grand a year, living similar lives. Larry's the baseline. He just keeps doing what he's always done. Nothing changes.
But Scott decides to implement some tiny, positive disciplines. And these are not heroic measures.
Not at all.
He commits to reading just 10 pages a day of a good book and listening to 30 minutes of some kind of self-improvement audio during his commute.
And physically, he cuts just 125 calories from his diet every day, which is, it's as simple as switching from mayo to mustard on a sandwich.
Right. And he walks a little bit more each day, just small, almost invisible positive actions.
Brad, on the other hand, he makes some simple errors in judgment. He buys a new, huge TV, which naturally leads to more time on the couch.
He starts indulging in, cheesy, creamy comfort foods. And he adds just 1 extra alcoholic drink a week to his routine. Again, nothing extreme.
No, just small, cumulative indulgences.
And the critical takeaway here is the timeline. This isn't a 31-day story. It's a 31-month journey.
And for 5 months, 10 months, even 18 months, there was absolutely no visible difference between Scott and Brad.
None. They looked the same, felt the same. Their lives seemed identical. Scott was probably questioning if any of his effort was worth it, Brad felt great enjoying his new TV.
But by month 25, the invisible had started to become visible. Scott looked a bit fitter, more energetic. Brad was definitely heavier and getting more sluggish.
And by month 31, the transformation was undeniable. It was irreversible. Brad had gained 33.5 pounds and Scott had lost 33.5 pounds.
That is a massive 67-pound swing between two people, and it was generated solely by that tiny 125-calorie difference compounded over 940 days.
But the physical change, that was only half the story. Scott's 30 minutes of daily audio and his 10 pages of reading. That meant over 31 months he had absorbed nearly 1,000 hours of new knowledge. He wasn't just losing weight. He was applying new ideas, which led to a promotion, a big raise, and a thriving marriage. Brad, meanwhile, was unhappy, struggling at work, and his marriage was deteriorating.
So the compounding effect, whether you're using it for positive disciplines or just simple errors in judgment, it is always running.
Always. And its effects don't just shape your waistline or your income, they ripple out and shape your entire psychological and emotional landscape.
This is what you'd call the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
We think of success or failure as these major events, but they're often triggered by unbelievably mundane choices.
Exactly. Let's just look at Brad's muffin habit.
So Brad's single poor choice, baking that cheesy muffin recipe, it just snowballed into a whole cascade of negative consequences. It wasn't just about the calories.
No, that muffin led to sluggishness and poor sleep. Poor sleep made him cranky, which immediately affected his focus at work. So, decreased work performance.
Which led to disappointing feedback from his boss, which increased his stress.
And what does stress lead to? Comfort eating. Further binging, reinforcing the whole cycle.
And because he lacked energy, he stopped taking those evening walks he used to enjoy with his wife.
Walks that used to be conversation time, now they just vanished. Which led to shorter, more superficial interactions and this growing marital distance. His wife starts feeling lonely.
And Brad starts blaming his wife, feeling confused and frustrated about why his life is suddenly just unraveling. He couldn't connect his feeling of stagnation and marital strain all the way back to that innocent-looking muffin habit.
Exactly. It proves that the compound effect shapes everything, your finances, your health, your relationships, all based on simple disciplines versus simple errors in judgment.
So this whole system, the entire compound effect, it all hinges on one foundational element: choice.
Absolutely. Every decision you make, no matter how small, whether to take that new assignment, who you spend your evenings with, whether to join in on office gossip.
Each one becomes a brick in the foundation of your life. Hardy says you make your choices, and then your choices turn around and make you.
And those choices become behaviors, which, when repeated, harden into habits. And those habits, over time, absolutely shape your destiny.
And even choosing not to choose is still a choice. It's the choice to be passive and let life happen to you, rather than by you.
The biggest challenge isn't that people intentionally choose to fail. Nobody wakes up and says, my plan for the next 5 years is to be overweight and bankrupt.
Of course not.
The problem is what Hardy calls sleepwalking. We make, 99% of our daily choices unconsciously. They're invisible choices woven into our routines, dictated by our culture, programmed by our upbringing.
We never consciously voted on them.
Never. And that's why we have to internalize the mosquito principle. We spend so much energy worrying about the catastrophic mistakes, the big, loud elephants that can derail a career.
But for most people, it's not the elephant that bites. It's the small, frequent, seemingly insignificant mosquitoes that we let bite us on autopilot. That's what does the long-term damage.
We're talking about grabbing that $4 coffee and bag of chips when you're bored,
Mm-hmm.
which just throws away an entire day of meal planning.
Right. Or sitting down for a few minutes of social media that turns into 2 lost hours, robbing you of the critical time you needed to prepare for tomorrow.
These are tiny choices, seemingly harmless, but they pile up. When you're on autopilot, the compound effect is still working furiously. It's just compiling damage in the wrong direction.
So the first step to reversing that is just waking up, becoming radically mindful of those small, everyday mosquitoes.
And once we're awake, we have to adopt the ultimate challenge, which is owning 100% of the results in our lives.
Right. The seminar story. The instructor asks the audience, what percentage of responsibility do you have for making a relationship work?
And most people instinctively say 50-50. It seems logical, right? It takes 2 people.
But the instructor rejected that completely, wrote 100% on the board. The profound insight is that you have to be willing to give 100% effort, commitment, grace, with zero expectation of getting anything back.
If you depend on the other person for their 50%, you've just introduced instability and an excuse to quit when things get hard.
And this applies way beyond relationships. If you blame traffic for being late, you're handing over control. If you blame the economy for your sales numbers, you're a victim.
If you blame your staff for a poor team performance, you've forfeited your power as a leader.
Oh, where do we draw the line there? I mean, if you're taking 100% responsibility for a situation that involves a genuinely negligent or toxic partner, aren't you just enabling their bad behavior?
That is the critical nuance. And taking 100% responsibility does not mean taking 100% of the blame or excusing bad behavior. It means recognizing that you are 100% responsible for your response to that behavior. You can't control what they do, but you control your reaction, your boundaries, and your decision to stay in that dynamic. Hardy's principle is about eliminating excuses for yourself and maximizing your own agency.
So if someone else fails, my 100% responsibility is to figure out the path forward that minimizes my damage, regardless of their actions.
Exactly. And sometimes that learning comes with a steep price tag, what Hardy calls the tuition at UHK, the University of Hard Knocks.
He shared a brutal story about losing over $330,000 in a failed startup because of a negligent business partner.
Initially, he was furious. He wanted to blame the partner entirely. But when he sat down, he took 100% responsibility. He realized the loss was ultimately his fault for being lazy,
For letting his ego blind him to red flags.
for failing to do his homework and pay attention to the financial details his own accountant was providing. The tuition at UHK, that $330,000 loss, was expensive, but the education was priceless.
He chose to own the result rather than wasting years in court as a victim.
And that ownership, it allows for incredible positive choices, like creating Thanksgiving year-round, which is basically about choosing your focus.
This is the story about the Thanksgiving journal, right? To shift his perspective on his marriage.
Yeah. He felt the relationship was stagnant, but instead of demanding his wife change, he committed to a simple daily discipline, writing down at least one thing he appreciated about her.
It could be anything. The way she laughed, a thoughtful gesture.
Or just that she picked up his dry cleaning. He tracked this for an entire year.
And the result was revolutionary. But not because his wife suddenly changed. The person whose brain chemistry and perspective shifted most profoundly was him, the giver.
By forcing himself to consciously search for positive qualities every single day, his mental filter shifted from fault-finding to gratitude.
You're literally training your brain to seek the good.
And the good appears everywhere. This created a positive compounding cycle in the marriage. The more genuinely he appreciated her, the better he treated her. The better he treated her, the more lovingly she responded. It all started from a 5-minute daily act of intentional gratitude.
It's amazing. So we often assume the key to change is just willpower, sheer determination.
Right. We try to drag ourselves through diet or exercise, but willpower is finite. It fades the moment things get uncomfortable or when stress drains our reserves.
The true sustainable fuel for change isn't willpower. It's what Hardy calls why power.
Your daily small choices only have meaning, and they're only sustainable when they're connected to your deepest, most emotional desires and dreams. If you don't have a strong why, you will quit, period.
Your why needs to be so exciting, so meaningful that it actually pulls you out of bed in the morning.
Think about the analogy of the plank. If I lay a 10-inch plank on the floor and offer you $20 to walk across it, you do it, no problem.
Sure.
But if I suspend that same plank between 200-story buildings, you wouldn't touch it for $20. The risk is too high.
Not a chance.
But your child or someone you love deeply was trapped in a fire on the opposite building. You wouldn't hesitate for a microsecond. You'd sprint across that plank.
Immediately.
The physical rift didn't change, but your why did. When your reason is big enough, protecting your family, achieving a profound life purpose, you will do whatever it takes. The impossible becomes effortless.
This connects directly to what Tony Robbins says. Success without fulfillment is ultimately failure. Your why has to be connected to something deeper than just stuff.
And sometimes that deeper reason can even come from a negative place, what we call find your fight. It is absolutely okay to be motivated by proving haters wrong or beating a competitor.
Or using past pain, like Sir Anthony Hopkins. He struggled intensely with dyslexia and ADHD as a kid and was often labeled a failure.
He channeled that frustration, that anger, and that desire to prove everyone wrong into his life's work. That deep-seated fight, born from early pain, fueled his mission to achieve mastery.
And to harness that why power, you have to define clear goals. But Hardy emphasizes the most important question isn't, what do I need to do?
No, it's Who do I need to become? Success isn't something you chase. It's something you attract by the quality of the person you are. If you want to have more, you must focus relentlessly on becoming more.
He shared that great story about attracting his wife, Georgia. He started by writing this massive 40-page list detailing every single quality he wanted in a perfect partner.
But then he did the profound work. He flipped the script and wrote 40 more pages, describing the kind of man he needed to become to attract a woman of that caliber.
He went to work on himself, transforming his identity, and a short time later he met Georgia, who embodied everything he had envisioned.
The brain is fundamentally a goal-seeking machine. When you write your goals down clearly, you give your brain a new filter. You override its default settings.
It's the red Honda Civic example. If
Okay.
you decide tomorrow you're going to buy a red Civic, suddenly you start seeing red Civics everywhere.
They were always there.
Yeah.
Your brain just categorized them as noise before. When you gave it a clear target, it activated the filter, making those opportunities visible.
A goal not written down is just a fantasy.
And once you have the why and the clear written goals, the next step is the secret weapon of all high achievers, your scorecard, tracking.
You absolutely cannot improve what you aren't aware of, and you can't manage what you don't measure. Tracking brings moment-to-moment, idiot-proof awareness to your choices.
Hardy learned this the hard way with what he calls the money trap. In his early 20s, he was making good money in real estate, but he had the shock of his life when his accountant told him he owed over $100,000 in unexpected taxes.
He had no idea where the money went. He was, in his accountant's blunt assessment, spending money like a drunken fool.
The fix was simple but painful. Track every single cent for 30 days in a little notebook. Instant awareness kicked in. The mere act of having to write down that he bought a $5 soda was enough to prevent the purchase.
It broke the autopilot state of spending.
And this awareness forces conscious decision-making, especially when you look at the compound math. We dismiss the daily $4 coffee habit. That's $4,460 a year.
But the opportunity cost is what's fascinating. Compounded over 20 years, invested conservatively, that small daily decision is costing you a potential nest egg of over $51,000.
Exactly. When you see a $5 impulse purchase, you have to ask yourself, is this worth sacrificing $250 of my future money?
So the action step here is to commit to tracking just one critical habit spending, calories, screen time, whatever, for 21 days straight. That's long enough to break the autopilot state and show you exactly where the mosquitoes are biting.
Every winner, from an Olympic athlete tracking micronutrients to a massive corporation tracking KPIs, is a rigorous tracker.
Okay, so once you've established those choices and started tracking, you have to engage the engine of success. Momentum, or what Hardy calls Big Mo.
Right. Momentum is that powerful, almost irresistible force that, once you earn it, makes success feel surprisingly effortless, like a massive freight train that just cannot be stopped.
But Big Mo is never gifted. It has to be earned through painful, consistent action.
Freight train is incredibly hard to start moving. It requires massive initial energy. But once it's rolling at 60 miles an hour, nothing can easily stop it.
So success feels like struggling and pushing in the beginning, where the effort seems way bigger than the outcome. But if you stay consistent, Big Mo shows up and suddenly progress just accelerates.
And the tragedy is that most people never meet Big Mo because they give up too early. They don't see quick results, so they move on to the next fad.
Which brings us to the hand pump analogy.
Perfect analogy. Imagine you're at an old well. You pump and pump furiously, and nothing but air comes out. Most people stop here and say the well is dry.
But they miss the key insight. That initial pumping is priming the water table. That period of effort without reward, that's where inconsistency kills your momentum.
It's a massive, self-inflicted reset button. You have to push through the pain until the water flows freely.
And the foundation that makes Big Mo possible is routine. Routines are the invisible systems that turn complex, high-value actions into automatic behaviors.
They conserve your limited willpower for the really difficult decisions.
We see this everywhere with high achievers. Think about the legendary golfer Jack Nicklaus. He was famous for his unvarying pre-shot routine.
Psychologists studied it. The sequence, stepping up, lining up, the club waggle, visualizing the target, it never varied by more than 1 second, from the first tee to the final putt. Relentless, automatic consistency.
And you contrast that with Greg Norman's famous collapse at the '96 Masters. As the pressure mounted on the back nine, his pre-shot routine sped up. He rushed it, broke his rhythm, and his performance just vanished.
Routines stabilize you under pressure.
Mm.
Without them, performance is totally unpredictable.
Building a solid routine also lets you set a sustainable pace. Hardy says success is a half marathon, not a sprint. You have to design a pace you can maintain for 50 years, not just 5 months of crazy effort.
Right. There's the story of Beverly, a salesperson who couldn't climb stairs without getting winded but wanted to run a half marathon. If she had started trying to run 5 miles immediately, she would have failed in a week.
Instead, she established a sustainable, compoundable pace. She started by just walking a 1-mile loop 3 times over 2 weeks. Then she compounded it, walking 3 times in 1 week.
Then she gradually added running until, after 7 weeks of consistent effort, she was jogging the whole mile. The key was increasing her distance by a barely noticeable eighth of a mile each time.
She compounded that effort until 9 months later she was running 13.5 miles regularly. But here's the compounding kicker.
Her improved energy translated to her work. She doubled her sales performance. She had more focus and patience with her husband and kids. The physical discipline became an emotional and professional multiplier.
So to manage the chaos of the day, high achievers bookend their days. They secure the start and the finish.
Let's start with the morning routine, that intentional mind reset. The first few minutes, ideally before you even check your phone.
You do 3 things. First, deliberate gratitude. Mentally list 5 things you're thankful for. Second, send love or positive energy to someone you care about.
And third, the planning anchor. Review your #1 goal and identify the top 3 most valuable priorities for the day. This anchors your day in intention and stops it from being hijacked by everyone else's emergencies.
Then the evening routine is the crucial cash out, like a waiter balancing receipts. You review what you accomplished, carry over what you didn't, and importantly, scratch off anything that's no longer relevant.
Right. This provides closure and prevents mental clutter. Then you journal insights, building a treasure chest of wisdom from the day.
And most importantly, you feed your mind positive content before sleep, at least 10 pages of an inspirational book. This lets your subconscious mind process success-aligned ideas while you sleep.
And finally, the power of rhythm moves beyond just daily habits. It's about establishing weekly, monthly, and yearly cycles. In his marriage, Hardy has a weekly date night, a family day, and the Sunday relationship review.
The Sunday check-in, rating the relationship 1 to 10, discussing wins and losses, and asking the powerful question, what would it take to get us to a 10 next week?
That intentional, ritualized communication prevents small errors from compounding. It forces alignment and proactive repair before problems get too big.
So while we accept we are 100% responsible for our choices, we also have to acknowledge the gatekeeper principle. Outside forces are constantly shaping those choices, often without us even knowing.
You have to become the intentional gatekeeper of your mind, your relationships, and your environment.
Hardy identifies 3 primary external influences. The first is input, the information you feed your mind.
Your brain's default job is survival and threat detection, which is why it's naturally drawn to fear, drama, and negative news.
So the solution is a deliberate media diet. The average person spends nearly 5 hours a day watching TV or scrolling social media. That's 2 entire months every single year.
You have to consciously flush out that dirty water and replace it with clean, fresh water.
And this is where Drive Time University is so transformative. The average person spends about 300 hours a year commuting.
If you use that time for audiobooks or educational podcasts instead of just radio chatter, you can effectively earn the equivalent of 2 full university semesters of focused educational content. Greatness in, greatness out.
The second influence is associations, the people you spend your time with. Jim Rohn's famous quote is absolute truth here. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Your income, your health, your attitude. All of it can be accurately predicted by looking at those 5 closest associations.
It's subtle, like floating in an inner tube at the beach. You feel like you're staying still, but an hour later, the current has drifted you way down the shore.
So you have to manage these relationships strategically. Sort them into 3 categories. First, disassociate. This is the hard one. You have to cut off toxic, negative people who drain your energy.
Second, limit. These are people who are generally good but don't actively align with your goals. Spend 3 hours with them, not 3 days.
And third, expand. Actively seek out mentors and peers who inspire you, challenge you, and make you feel energized. Find a dedicated peak performance partner, an accountability buddy for a weekly check-in.
Someone who will absolutely call you out when you slack off.
And the third influence is environment, your physical surroundings. Hardy argues that a limiting environment stunts growth, like planting a sapling in a tiny pot. If you want to become a mighty oak, you need space to grow.
And this is more than just the city you live in. It's your workspace, your car, your home office, the clutter in your mind.
A chaotic environment creates constant low-grade stress and drains precious energy that should be going toward your goals.
Hardy's key realization here is, you get in life what you tolerate. If you tolerate clutter, disrespect, a substandard salary, the world will confirm those low standards.
The world responds to the standards you set for yourself.
Hardy made this realization when he was in real estate. He felt his environment was limiting his vision. So he started driving frequently to Tiburon, a beautiful, affluent spot, just to sit and absorb the energy of success.
He wasn't meeting clients. He was just asking himself, which one of these magnificent homes would be my dream home? He was soaking in the possibility. It extended his vision of what was possible.
Okay, so we've established the disciplines, engaged Big Mo, and aligned our environment. Now it's time for acceleration. This is where you push beyond what's merely expected to multiply your results.
And this happens at what Hardy calls the moment of truth. He experienced these cycling up Mount Soledad, a grueling 2-mile climb where your lungs are burning and your mind just screams, quit!
That point of maximal discomfort is the wall where 99% of people stop. But it is precisely where champions reveal their true character and separate from the pack.
It's not about whether you hit the wall. It's about your mental strategy after you hit it. Growth doesn't happen in easy moments. It happens when you are in pain at the very edge of your capacity.
Look at champion cyclists like Lance Armstrong. He was exhausted and behind, but he surged ahead, found the weakness in his competitors, and just kept pushing through the pain.
Muhammad Ali used this strategy perfectly against George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. He used the rope-a-dope, absorbing blow after blow, knowing Foreman lacked endurance.
He waited until Foreman hit his wall, until he was physically and psychologically spent, and then Ali struck.
Every time you hit the wall in your daily disciplines, a difficult cold call, a complex negotiation, the last set of a workout, it is an opportunity. It is life saying, this is the moment you leave your old self behind.
And we can leverage this through the multiplier effect. A small extra effort multiplies results exponentially. In weight training, the real growth happens in the 3 to 5 reps after you've hit your expected limit.
It's the same with the magic penny. If you add just 4 extra doublings to that 31-day cycle, just 1 extra a week, the result doesn't just increase by a few million. It skyrockets from $10.7 million to nearly $171 million.
A little extra effort, consistently applied, does not just add to your results, it multiplies them.
To truly accelerate, you have to consistently beat expectations. Always deliver more value than expected. This builds goodwill and trust that compounds over time.
Oprah is the master of this. During her famous car giveaway, she called 11 people to the stage, which was already amazing. But then she revealed that every single person in the audience, 276 people, got a car.
That moment went beyond generosity and built legendary loyalty and cultural impact that pays dividends decades later.
Hardy followed this principle when he proposed to his wife. He didn't just ask her father for permission. He went the extra mile. He rehearsed and delivered a heartfelt speech in Portuguese to honor her heritage.
Then he called all 5 of her brothers to ask for their blessing personally. That unexpected extra effort multiplied the relational goodwill indefinitely.
And finally, we need to master the art of doing the unexpected, zigging when everyone else is zagging. Common actions lead to common results.
Everyone sends generic Christmas cards during the most cluttered time of the year. Hardy sends Thanksgiving cards with a personal, handwritten note of gratitude. It stands out because it's unexpected.
This requires guts and creativity. It's the story of the unsuccessful candidate who failed to get his dream job. The company was doing remote interviews. Hardy told him, do the unexpected, get on a plane, show up in person, show them how serious you are.
But the candidate rationalized, stayed home, failed to make an impression over video, and didn't get the job, even though he was the best on paper. He did the expected, so he got the expected result.
That little zag is often the difference between success and failure. It's the final compounding factor.
So what does this all mean for your life right now? The compound effect is not a tool you can turn off. It is always running 24 hours a day, either working furiously for you or compiling damage against you.
Success is not an overnight miracle. It is a predictable process of small, deliberate, consistent actions, amplified by the right influences, and accelerated by that crucial extra effort.
Take a moment and reflect on your last 5 years.
Yeah?
If you aren't where you want to be, In your health, your finances, your relationships, the answer is simple. It's been a matter of choices, compounded over time.
The fundamental challenge we leave you with today is to commit to ensuring the next 5 years do not mirror the last.
You now have the tools. You're no longer sleepwalking through your most critical decisions. But remember, knowledge without execution is meaningless. The true change only happens when insight is paired with relentless, disciplined, consistent effort.
And here is the final thought for you to carry forward. Your personal growth is profoundly intertwined with the growth of those around you. The compound effect dictates that to receive more wealth, more respect, more fulfillment, you must consistently give more.
So how will you apply this principle? How will you share the knowledge and mindset you've gained today, or a mentor or colleague, to help someone else succeed? Because in the process of pulling others toward greater success, you inevitably and automatically pull yourself along with them.
The choice to start steering that unstoppable momentum is available to you right now.